Hey, this is DJ. This is Kaz. We're Buried Above Ground, and this is Speak of the Devil podcast.
Hello and welcome back to the Speak of the Devil podcast. It has been a very long time since we have broadcast, and we are broadcasting here on a very beautiful, warm last November day. But here we are again, back at it. So let's get back into some topics. So, in the world of music, very interesting next couple of days going to be happening. Ozzfest is coming back, but not in the way that you would think. They are going to be playing at a live venue somewhere. I believe it's LA or something like that. I'm not sure if there's actually audience members there, but this is going to be part of the Metaverse celebration that's going to be happening in the Metaverse on Quest or whatever platforms can access it. I guess it'll be a free stream as well. So it'll be free on VR as well as on regular flat TVs. I've never seen a concert in VR, let alone, Ozzfest, which is going to have, obviously, Ozzy's going to headline, but Black Label Society is going to play, Megadeth is going to play, and then, oddly enough, Motorhead is on the billing. When I first saw the poster, I thought that this was like something that had happened in the past. It was like one of those, throwback Thursdays or something. But no, this was actually a poster for this event. It'll be happening over the 10th, 11th, 12th, and the 13th, I believe. So I don't know if they'll all play on one night. I think there's like over 100 different acts from, a bunch of different, genres for the Metaverse experience. So I'm not even sure how to check it out, but I'll try to check it out and report back next time to see how the experience was. Apparently there's cameras, as you would expect, like all over, so you could get different viewpoints of the stage, and the audio experience should be pretty good. So it'll be great. I mean, obviously online you hear a lot of dissenters saying, how in the world is Motorhead going to be playing if Lemmy's dead? And they've responded that it is going to be actually Lemmy playing and singing. So obviously this is going to be one of those holographic experiences. Something, it's going to obviously have to be something from a show that they put together in the past, unless they're using like some Disney Star Wars Vader technology where they can actually replicate his voice and make him sing. But I doubt it's going to be that. It's probably going to be just some kind of hologram experience. I have not heard that Mickey D or anybody else is like signed on to do this, so maybe they'll all be virtual. But Motorhead is booked to play on this Ozzfest, so we'll see how that goes. I'm not a big fan of holographic performances. I know they've done it, I think, with Michael Jackson and a couple other people. I think maybe Elvis. But I've never seen it, but just little clips of it. But I think it's better to just, let the past live in the past and not have to dig up something like that. I mean, if you want to see it, there's a lot of videos and stuff, and you just can't recreate the live experience through a hologram. But maybe they'll prove me wrong. Maybe it'll still be interesting. So as Black Label Society will be playing there, that kind of leads into the next story. That's not really a story anymore, but for this podcast it is. Tribute Pantera is getting back together with Zakk Wylde playing guitar. I think it's Charlie Benante from Anthrax is going to play drums, and then obviously Phil and the bass player's name eludes me, but it'll be everybody back together, and that's actually a show that I would really like to see. I would imagine that it's going to be kind of like a one run and done. I don't believe that there's any plans to do an album or anything like that. It's just strictly just to get out there and pay tribute to Vinny and Dimebag. So I can't wait. That's going to be really, really interesting to see. I've heard some reports that, even though Zakk is a huge fan, like he really doesn't know the catalog extensively, but I'm sure somebody of his prowess will probably pick them up really quick, all the songs, and it's going to be a rager. So I guess they've already announced a couple dates. I think Norway, they're playing Tons of Rock. I don't know. I don't think the official U.S. run has been put out, but I mean, I don't know if I'd go as far as Chicago, but certainly Detroit, Cleveland. I mean, I doubt they go to Columbus. It'd probably be one of the bigger cities, but something like that, maybe even Indy. But definitely on my radar. There's not too many bands, that I, grew up wanting to see that I haven't seen. I've seen almost everybody that I wanted to see multiple times, as a matter of fact. So, I mean, I think maybe the only other on my list is like Power Man 5000. I know they're coming through in March to Flint, so that's only like an hour and a half from where I'm at. So, maybe go see that, but definitely keeping an eye on Pantera. That's going to be something that everybody should check out. And I guess for outside music, that's kind of it for today. The only other thing that I'll highlight in terms of music is a new instrument company that I came across that I'm sure a lot of guitarists are running into right now. I guess the company is called Thomann, and Thomann actually has a line that they sponsor called Harley Benton, and it's a full line of guitars and amps and basses and effects, and you name it, they got it. And I was just kind of really brought in from seeing it on social media because they had these great deals on a couple things that I had been looking for, one of which was a baritone back there that I've never had. I've always wanted to be able to really get into the drop tunings without having to put telephone wire thickness on my guitar and have the neck be super tense and cutting up my hands in 2 seconds. This has a longer scale, so it actually plays more like a bass, but it's still really, really heavy. I actually had the stock bridge pulled out, put a DiMarzio P90 super distortion in there to really give it some good chunk. It just had a single coil in there before, and you could get it heavy, but it's just feedback and all like crazy, and I like to play it real loud and real heavy, so that can handle that. So that's a fun little toy. I don't have it. The other thing I got was a nice 212 combo with Celestion Vintage 30s in it. That thing rocks. I haven't really had a chance to really push it to its limits, but I just really got it more for like a practice amp, or maybe small gigs if that ever happens again. But it's just something to easily transport. So I mean, from what I played, it's really high quality, and again, very inexpensive. Shipping is a bit expensive, but there's no tax, so I don't know if like that offsets it, but the shipping for everything is pretty steep, so just kind of know that. But it's great. Harley Benton, I would highly recommend it. It's I'd like to buy more, but you can get kind of crazy with prices that low. But again, check it out. So that's it for music. And moving on to video games. Video games is interesting because the last time that the podcast happened, was pretty heavily into PSVR and everything that was going on there. Kind of the tail end was. I don't think we were still broadcasting when Quest 2 came out, but I've had a couple of years with the Quest 2 now, and now we're evolved from that. Now Meta has just announced and launched the Quest Pro, which is $1,500, which is a steep moving away from the $300 that the Quest 2 started at, or the $400 for, but still $300 could get you in the game. Now it's $1,500, and for the most part, the library is completely the same. There's not too much more high tech that was put into it. It's kind of being marketed towards businesses and enterprise solutions, and then the gaming's kind of on the side. Apparently, at some point, there will be a new consumer grade Quest 3 that will come out. No details on that yet, but it's kind of fading a little bit. There was a lot of games like Iron Man that I had last talked about but that came out 2 years ago on PSVR, and now it's launched on Quest 2 as if it's like this new thing, which it's really not. So a lot of games that were supposedly going to come out, like an Assassin's Creed, Splinter Cell, I think Assassin's Creed still might be coming out, but Splinter Cell got canceled. A couple other high-end titles that were really going to like drive the genre forward and get away from kind of like these techie demo-y kind of game chunk experiences, because there's not too many games, you know, maybe outside of the Star Wars Vader games that really have a lot of depth to them. But, you know, I guess to kind of combat that, you know, PlayStation has also announced their PSVR2, which is now been, I guess, priced at $550 for just the base unit, $600 if you want the Horizon package that comes with it, the game. That looks to be a little bit more fleshed out, but again, you're going to need to spend, you know, $600 to get the base experience and the game, and then you're also going to have to buy a PS5. So, you know, you're with tax and everything, you're looking at about $1,000, you know, to get into the next, you know, versions of you know, VR greatness. And I think that's kind of where Quest 2 was kind of ahead of its time in a way, where they packed a bunch of technology in there that probably cost them more to put out than they were charging. And now they're almost trying to recoup that with the Pro. And I even hear that the Quest 2 is actually going back up in price again. So, you know, maybe now it's kind of all balancing down. We'll see how, you know, other people respond to it. But so those two, you know, the VR sets were, you know, one's out. I believe the PSVR 2 will be out in March. So probably not something that I'm going to check out. I mean, that price point is getting crazy. You know, $300-$400, you know, for the Quest 2 felt fine. But anything more than that just kind of feels like you really have to be dedicated to that type of gaming. And I don't know anybody that has either a Quest 2, a PSVR 1, or plans on getting any of this stuff. So there's not a very big community to play with. You know, I mean, every now and then you can play with like YouTube personalities like Gamertag VR, which I played with a couple times. But outside of that, like outside of some niche kind of, you know, games and playing experiences, like the NFL Pro era that just came out, which, you know, lets you be like a quarterback, kinda. That's cool, but it's like, again, it's like a bite-sized kind of game. It's like it doesn't really flesh out. You can't play any of the other teammates, just a quarterback. So maybe PSVR 2 will have the ability to do that, because PSVR 1 did have a lot of longer experiences. The Hitman experience was amazing. Probably the best game that I, you know, really enjoyed on PSVR throughout the whole library, because you could play all of the old games, including the new one, fully immersed in 3D. Where it totally lacked was the controls, though, because you actually had to use the regular controller and kind of walk around with that, and the arms got real wonky, so anytime you got in a firefight, it was just a mess. So that's something that PSVR 2 will, you know, be better with. It'll have its own individual hand controllers like the Quest does. There'll be haptic feedback and all that kind of stuff, so playing games like that will be much more intuitive. But Hitman was beautiful, and it was very immersive and engaging. You really felt like you were in the worlds and the environments that, you know, you were portraying. So that was one experience that, you know, hopefully PSVR 2 can flesh out more with other experiences. And I know Horizon, being the pack-in game, is going to be the one that, you know, tries to show that right out of the bat. So we'll see. I mean, maybe they'll have some other stuff, and who knows. But still, those price points are really high. So you're looking at $1,000 at least to get into PSVR 2 when it comes out next year. But who knows? You know, maybe you get a little extra money somehow and you get it. So on to current games that are out or interesting to me, I suppose. Sonic Frontiers. It's been a long time since, I don't know, probably not that long a time since a Sonic game come out. They come out so much, but like a Sonic game that's really like moving the genre in a different direction, where this is like open world, and a lot of people are calling it like the Breath of the Wild of, you know, Sonic games, which it really is, because it's open world-ish, and it has like kind of like a more laid-back vibe. You know, there's like piano, gentle music, and like a lot of the overworlds. it's night and day cycles. It gives you a chance to explore, take your time, which is kind of weird in a Sonic game because you want to be moving fast, which you do. But it's just a different experience being open world. It's a bit wonky. I've got it on Series S, which isn't completely optimized right at launch, but it's still Sonic. If you're a longtime Sonic fan, you'll kind of forgive it some of these shortcomings and just appreciate it for what it is, which is kind of a return to form. It kind of feels like the true sequel to the Sonic Adventure series, where when Sonic Adventure came out, it gave this same type of feeling like, wow, look at, you can kind of go anywhere. But Sonic Adventure was, the overworlds were very, very small. I mean, yeah, you could kind of run around a little bit and connect it. This is huge. It's, very, very large. It's not like Breath of the Wild where you have the depth to be able to see everything out in the distance, but, because it's just not perfectly optimized yet. But as most reviewers say, maybe it'll get better, as the series evolves with a sequel or something like that, but I recommend it. It's not a great game. It's not like anything. I'd say maybe a 7 out of 10. I agree with the reviewers. It's a good game, but it's not a great game. So if you're a Sonic, aficionado, you'll like it a little bit more. If you're just, judging it on the gameplay itself, you might not enjoy it, but your mileage may vary. So, and the other game I'll mention, and I'm not really into it, but Modern Warfare 2, only in the fact that it has earned $1 billion in less than 2 weeks, onwards of selling upwards in over 100 million copies, which makes it the most successful Modern Warfare game of all time. So there you go. I'm not really great at those games. Usually, if I'm gonna do something like that, like Overwatch 2 just came out. Like, I really like playing like something like that, or maybe even Fortnite if you got some friends to play with. But I've always found that the Modern Warfares, you really need to learn the maps, learn the guns, learn the spots to hide and move, and I just don't have the patience or time to do that. I'm more of like an arcade kind of shooter like Overwatch 2. So that's where I'm at. So that's it for video games, and now we'll move to finally wrestling. Wrestling has been interesting, especially this year, with the announcement and retirement of Vince McMahon as CEO of WWE. I mean, it was obviously, if anybody's heard any of the news, it was marred by a little bit of personal controversy that he had, but, at 77 years old, I think it was time to, hang it up and hand over the reins, so to speak, to Stephanie and Triple H, which are doing a tremendous job. The product is great right now. I'm very much enjoying it. You got Roman Reigns still on his, I think, over 2-year run as head of the table with the Usos. It's good wrestling. Finn Balor with Judgment Day. It's all good. So you just have to kind of see where the future goes. But for right now, I think Triple H and Stephanie, are the ones to really, they were the good stewards to hand it over. I think maybe some people would have thought maybe Shane or would have came back or something, which would have felt more appropriate, because he was kind of dabbling in it for a little bit before he left. But, I think that we're in good hands. So we just had Crown Jewel, which was in Saudi Arabia. And it was interesting because I'm not usually one for celebrity matches, especially for them to go on last and to challenge Roman Reigns for the belt, which he's had, again, for almost 2 years. But Logan Paul, honestly, for a celebrity wrestler, I thought probably did one of the best jobs I've ever seen a celebrity wrestler ever do. I mean, he was actually fairly fit, had some, kind of ring fundamentals, knew how to, bounce off the ropes and everything and take a bump, and it looked proper. And he even did a couple guillotine clotheslines where he flips over the ropes and it hits him real hard, doing somersaults on the top rope with his selfie camera and everything. So obviously he didn't win, but he did put on a good match, had a couple near falls where, kind of got the crowd thinking, oh my gosh, maybe he could win, but, he didn't. But the fact that he could even get an emotional near fall or two is a testament to how well he did. So I'm not a Logan Paul fan really whatsoever, but I can't deny that he had a great match against Roman Reigns. So maybe I would assume they'd probably bring him back based on that performance to do some other gimmicky stuff. I'm probably surely for WrestleMania. But hey, bravo to Logan Paul for at least hanging in there with the Tribal Chief. And let's see, the last thing is, now it's old news, but I've never really been that into AEW, and, I had heard that, CM Punk had came back earlier in the year and, was having fights with Jon Moxley, and I guess that kind of led to, I think it was a dual championship match where they each had a belt or something at All Out. And, that match happened, which Punk got hurt in, legit. So, he's out for like 8 months with a legitimate muscle injury, but then comes back, and AEW has these scrums, they call them, after the match, kind of like a boxing event, when they sit there and talk about what happened, which is weird because it's something you never seen in WWE or really any wrestling promotion, because it's a scripted show. So what are they really going to say when they go back to talk about wins and losses? But they do it. But this is one time where they broke out, and again, Punk goes into a pipe bomb and just kind of tears into the whole company. And it evolved. It was difficult. It's hard to watch. It's like a 20-minute just rant, where he's just calling everybody and anything out in AEW, which I guess led then to him going into his locker room afterwards, and then wrestlers came, the ones that he was calling out. They go in there and they get in the shouting match, and next thing you know, chairs are being thrown, people are biting each other, fighting, and the whole thing. So Punk gets suspended, even though he was hurt, it wouldn't have mattered anyway. The people that were involved, everybody gets suspended, and then a couple weeks later, it happens with other wrestlers backstage where they're fighting. So it's just crazy, because in the beginning of the year, when Vince was still operating and not only just CEO but head of creative as well, there was kind of a feeling that AEW was kind of taking over creatively, that they were allowing their wrestlers to do different promos, and because they're not scripted, they get to just talk, and the matches were different, and there was the feeling almost like WCW in the 90s where are they gonna eke up and take some of WWE's market share? But then once Vince retired, and then now all of this stuff starts happening, it just puts into big question, what is the real focus and direction of AEW? Because now, as you can imagine, CM Punk is still hot, and now with McMahon gone, who he had the problem with, he could come back under Triple H and Stephanie. He'd come back and fight Cody Rhodes, who Cody Rhodes came back and had an amazing WrestleMania match, who also then subsequently got hurt as well with the muscle injury. But those two could be in WWE. That could possibly be a WrestleMania match, which earlier this year nobody would have thought would have been possible. But that's just how wrestling goes, and so competition is good, and if they go back and forth, it's fine. That's back in the days in the territories, that's how it always was, and in some ways it's good for talent to have that ability. But backstage fighting when it's real isn't part of the show, so that's not something that's great with the product. But hey, again, WWE's hitting on all cylinders, so it's still fun to watch. I think the next pay-per-view is probably Survivor Series, and finally another thing that they have done is I think we've got it now, that WWE is now going to pretty much have all of their pay-per-views on Saturday nights. I've been in the podcast, I've over and over said that it was just a big request, just like UFC does it on Saturday nights. Nobody watches on Sunday nights. It's an old 80s style, kind of archaic way of doing pay-per-view. Everybody's got to work on Monday, so nobody wants to watch it on Sunday. And you're competing against Sunday Night Football, which in the past they didn't have. So now you have football you're going up against as well. So why not do it on Saturday? And they've finally listened, and that is what's happening. I've already seen it on the poster. So Survivor Series will be on a Saturday. That'll be a good time. So We'll report. I don't know when that is. Probably really soon. So I don't know if we'll have a podcast before then. But we are back podcasting. So thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.